Hello and welcome to Elvenhome. Plenty to talk about in this episode. Show you a bit more work around the gasworks, talk a little bit about the canal, show you a website that I use to help work out scale speed. Ewan, this is particularly for you. And also you get to see my new sound fitted 4F that arrived just on the day that the previous video went up. So let's get straight onto it and have a look at what's been going on the layout. I thought I'd try a rather different approach in this video to talking about the work that I've been doing down here and what I have planned to do. And we'll see if this comes off. If it doesn't, you will never see this footage. I've got the new my new 4F, sound fitted 4F, running along with the Bachmann Club 8F in maroon, which of course is a preserved colour. They've got sound running. A bit later in the video, we're going to find out what scale speed they're doing. And I'm going to show you a website that I came across a while ago that helps you estimate what the scale speed is of the locomotives that you're running. Should you be interested in running them at prototypical speeds. One thing I will say now is that the speed that the train runs on your layout is the speed that makes you happy. And you don't run the trains for anybody else, you run them for you. And if it's going a bit fast or it's going a bit slow, it doesn't matter a hill of beans. But if you want to know and try and run trains at a prototypical speed, there's a website that can help you do that, which can save you on one or two little gadgets, which seem to me to be solutions in search of a problem. So let's talk about what I've been doing so far on the layout. The main thing you'll remember at the end of the last video was that I showed you the start of the layout for the canal. And I'll come back to the canal a bit later. But I've carried on doing work around the gasworks. And in particular, the thing that I promised to do, which you may be able to see from that, but I'll take a close-up shot so that you can see, is put the traffic lights, the working traffic lights in. First of all, a complete shout out to Kite's Lights, Joe Kite. I bought my traffic lights on the Friday of Model Rail Scotland. I went to put them in on the Saturday, and one of the lights, red aspect, was not showing at all, just wouldn't have anything to do, just didn't want to come out and play. So I thought, well, I'll drop him an email on his website and he can pick that up when he gets back to, I think he's in Portsmouth. At the end of early next week. Within half an hour I'd had a reply from Joe asking me to confirm the gauge, the scale, and to give my address. And on the Tuesday morning a replacement light had arrived. I think that is amazing customer service. I was able to reset the timing. When you get the unit, all the lamps light for exactly 2 seconds. That's so you can know that all the lamps are working. I've set it for a default setting in there, which is for prototypical UK use, but I'm really pleased with these lamps. They're quite mesmerizing. You can sit and look at them for hours. The unit that it comes with is able to take a set of lamps, but you can in fact put 2 sets of lamps so that you could have, but you'll only be showing 2 phases, if you see what I mean. So if I wanted to put, say, a lamp here and a lamp there, these 2 would be in phase. And similarly, I could put a lamp here and a lamp there, and those 2 would be in phase. So if you were building a bigger junction where you would want to have 2 lamps both showing the same sequence, you can put that in. And they do Blocksignalling is the company that makes the unit. And I'll put a link in the description of the video for Blocksignalling, because they do quite a number of things which I suspect some of you will find really rather useful. In addition, you may be able to see there that the street lamps have gone in, as has a grass area now in front of the school. The school has yet to be put on with some children, so Henrik, your children will be going in there soon. And also a big shout out to Tony from Heritage Line, who's let me have some painted children to put in there. Our exchange over YouTube, I was due to meet Tony at Model Rail Scotland, but he hurt his back. Our exchange over YouTube talking about letting me have children that he's been painting. I did think it would be caught by the algorithm at some point, but I'm not sure that it actually was. So what I'll do now is I'll just stop there and go to the desk and let you have a look and show you the unit that I used to get the traffic lights to work. I don't intend this to be very long, but I thought you might like to see the controller that's controlling the traffic lights. It comes with some instructions from Kite's Lights, but there is more detailed instructions on Blocksignalling's own website. They've got a whole series of PDF documents for all the various things that they sell. And it's fairly simple design, really. The power comes in here. And then along these terminals, if I'll turn this around the other way, it's a common anode, as you can see from there. So the two common wires from each of the lamps goes into here. I've only got 2 lamps. If you had 4 lamps, all 4 would go into here. And then with 2 lamps, you wire into each of the 6 channels that are here, green, amber, red. So that's 1 lamp, green, amber, red. That's the second lamp. If you were putting 2 pairs in, then you would put the 2 green, 2 amber, 2 red, etc., etc. To reset the unit, there is this button here. Now it's big thumb, little button. You can imagine that I had some fun resetting this unit, and you turn the power off, hold the button down, turn the power on. The LED that's there, that's lit, that lights up red, will flash, and you can then count the number of flashes to let you know when to release this, and that enters into a quite lengthy suite of programmable things. Oh yes, this is what comes with it from Kite's Lights, and sends you off in the right direction. There are some default modes, so it comes with the 2 seconds on each lamp. You can have that's the default UK mode, so it's running through the red and amber, green, amber, and it will do that at 2 seconds. It'll also go in continental mode, and then there are settings for either filament lamps, which is what I've gone for, which is UK short to simulate filament lamps. You can have continental with filament lamps, and then the same again for LED lamps. But if you want to, you can indeed go into a lot more programming and set all sorts of wonderful things by using the little button that's there. So it's really quite a flexible thing, and fairly straightforward to use and to fit. Unless you've got a big thumb and a little button. But yeah, I managed to do it in the end, so it wasn't quite so difficult as I feared it might be. But that's the unit that's sitting underneath the layout controlling the traffic lights. Now that I've got the lights fitted in and along the side of the gasworks as well, the next stage is to complete the top end of the gasworks up here, because I've got some things I want to buy at the York Model Show. 7 models are due to be there, and there's a couple of things I want of theirs, and I'd quite like to see them before I actually buy them. And that will be a small coal office for the selling of coal to the locals, which was done from gasworks. And at that point, I'll decide whether I need to put a light in around here somewhere. The light that these shed, particularly when it gets a bit darker, is quite good, and it gives quite a lot of light to this side by the fence. It may be that I want to put a light or 2 on that side of the road, but it may be enough if I just pop a light in near where the entrance is to the gasworks. I've also got to put some lights into this part, a couple of lights here to give me light, once I get to here, I'm into the difficult territory, and I know that this whole area under here is just a maze of wire and point motors, chop blocks, all sorts of stuff, and there is no way on earth I am going anywhere near putting any more lights in here. I'm getting closer and closer to finding a way to put lights in here. I've used the detector thing that I got, the stud wall finder, and it kept beeping. But the lamps that I've got here have a very short stub on them, and I'm beginning to think that I may be able to mill out a 2 or 3 millimeter trench and then raise the lamp slightly so that I can run cables probably from this side through to the back here. By the time we get to the back here, it's off the board and I can drop the cables down through the board. Need to check what's underneath, because there's a big power blocks that's underneath which can be moved, so that's not determinative in any way in the difficult way that it is before. That will then complete all of that part of the area, and that will bring me on to having a look at how we blend this part down with where the canal is going to be and the industries that I want to put in there. And I'll talk about those in just a moment. But I did promise that I would talk about how to set the scale speed of these locomotives. And I need to adjust the camera to do that, which I will do shortly. So that's the section that we'll go on to next. On a recent live stream of Ewan Chalmers' channel, The Growler, he was asking how he would test whether one of his 66s, class 66s, was actually running at prototypical speed, as he'd been assured by Bachmann, because he seemed to think that it was running very slow. And I mentioned in the live chat that I'd come across a website that allows you to do scale speed. Now what I'm going to do is measure the time that this 4F that's coming around takes to get from the back of the 9F to the start of the autocar that's down by the signal box. And I use this web page to do it. What I have to do is when it reaches the back, I press start. And when it reaches the autocar, I will press stop. And it will then tell me what the scale speed is. So I'll bring this more into view. As you can see, I've already set that the distance is 1 meter because I set those 2 points exactly a meter apart, and I've chosen that it's N gauge. And it covered that distance in 14.8 seconds and is running at a scale speed of about 24 miles per hour. Now this I find a fairly cheap way of doing things. I want that train, it's running a suburban service, and I think I would actually want it running closer to about 40 miles an hour. So what we're going to do, I've got it set to a scale to 60 speed steps of the 128. I think we'll take that up a bit to 70, and we'll see what speed that changes it to as it comes round. As you can hear, I put the sound on for the 4F. It's a beautiful little engine, and I'll do the running session after this before we go on to speak about the canal and probably bring the video to a close. Just wait for it to come back round. And once I've done this, I'll also have a look at the 8F, but not on camera. So we're coming round again, and I just do the same thing as it comes round. Ah, my light's gone out. So I start it there, keep it running, follow it round until it reaches the end of the autocar and stop. And now the reading is a scale of 31, so I can afford to let it go a bit faster. I will now regulate this. I won't make you watch this happen again until it's doing about 40 miles an hour, and I think the freight I want to be doing about 30 because it's got quite a heavy train on. and that's the speeds they'll be doing for the running session, which we'll go on to now. I hope you enjoyed the running session. For your information, the 4F, which is passing me now, is running at a scale speed of 41.28 miles per hour, according to that website, and the 8F is doing just under 35 miles an hour, it's 34.9 something. Now that is near enough for me. I don't need absolute precision, but I know it's broadly in the right sort of area for the speeds that I wanted to be doing. So the final part of this week's video is really to talk a bit about the canal and the canal basin. You'll recall in the last video that I made a somewhat elliptical reference to my canal consultant that lives near Minehead, who is Mark Island of Piddle in the Marsh. Mark is a fount of knowledge on many things and a great help, I know, to many of us engaged modelers in all sorts of ways. And one of the things that he has knowledge about is canals. So after the last video, he got in touch and we spoke, and he suggested some changes to the canal down here. Let me just bring this down a bit more. I originally had this going at something of an angle. And he thought that actually it would be better if that came down straight and we put a winding hole in here, which is what this thing is. In the light of that, this is now fixed. This is all fixed down here, up to and including the lock, which is staying. That is removable at the moment. I haven't stuck that down yet, but it fits in there and that holds it good and tight. I've cut out the plastic bottom here because when I put the PVA down to provide the water, that's the approach I'm going to take, which seems to work really well. I didn't want it stepping up there onto the base, so that's come out, that's not a problem, and that will bring the water level into here. As you will see, or may have seen earlier, the golden perch is has been brought out of storage and brought down from High Elven and put here, and I've put the lights on. I took some footage earlier with the lights on. You may remember that, although those of you who must be over a year since it was last on the layout, this was a scratch-built pub that I made to go up at High Elven, and it has a small Skittles alley in the back, and there's a little man playing Skittles in the back. I'll see if I can get some footage of little man playing Skittles in the back, but it's actually quite tricky. Now, this would be a bargeman's pub for the time that I was here, and it's a little bit twee perhaps for being by the side of a canal, but I don't care. There won't be as much space up on High Elven as there was, and this makes much more sense down here. Harper's Yard has been put there, and I've put lights in there, both in the base and in the top. I do have light bleed with Harper's Yard because underneath Harper's Yard it's completely empty. When I built this, I put a base on, so I don't get light bleed. But that's easy to fix when I fix it down permanently. So the canal comes through here and then will go under the bridge, and that is the canal basin. And I've sent one of the things I did to Mark was send him a picture once I'd more or less worked out where I thought things would go of the canal basin. It's more than a boat's width, as you can see. And the way things are going to work is I'm going to build up a bank along here. The scrapyard is going to go in here, and the bank will come up, and then the hill will come down to join a fairly narrow path here. This is not intended as a footpath particularly, unless the boats need to use it. It's certainly not intended for a horse to go along, because the path under here is really very narrow. Horses would draw their barges through here in the days when there was horsepower, which would have been long before the time in which my railway is set. But around here, I am going to be putting in the around for the basin to allow some barges to just sort of moor up here. This is going to be a timber yard around here. In fact, I may have made this a bit wide because I've only just put these back on the layout from earlier. This is one of a kit of 3 models from MMR Models that I saw at Worley, and I'm really impressed with it. It's an MDF kit. If I bring it up to the camera, obviously it just comes as plain light MDF. Let me get it into focus. There we go. The thing that was really impressed me is that you get an interior and an exterior wall. So you build the interior wall first of all and then put the exterior wall round it. I painted it the natural wood colour that I've used, and then just weathered it. So the colours on here now is just weathering powders, and it is just the 2 basic ones of light earth and then black soot. The top I painted a black grey, I think is what it's called, just to give me enough of a look of what might be a sort of asphalt roof. Do I mean asphalt? No, I don't, but I can't remember what I do mean. And that's the sawmill, and it comes together with this, which is obviously a load of parts that you paint up and then put together, which provides me with the main area for the logs go on there, go through there and come out the other side. I have a couple of other buildings which I'll be building, I hope, over the next couple of weeks, or maybe the next month or so, because I want to position all of those in place and then start work on building stacks of wood. I've not yet found anything that I like the look of in terms of wood stacks for a timber yard, but I have found some quite thin balsa wood, which I think would not be hard to cut quite a lot of that up and create my own stacks of wood. Dyeing it using a process, those of you that follow Mark Len of Sweden, Martin's approach, he did one, his is an HO scale railway, but I think I could adapt that process for here. So there's certainly going to be a timber mill here. I think I want a warehouse here. The road is going to come, as you see, I've built in where the road follows round to get to the level crossing. And from here, coming at a slight angle and then descending down, will be the road that gives access to the canal basin. As I said, the hill is going to go down here, and I'm currently thinking that what I want is a winding path that comes off the road here, which winds its way down down to here, just to provide a kind of sort of human-made path, not one that was ever intended, but one that by usage of time has been worn in to allow people to take a shortcut to get down to the canal around this side. So the path will wind its way down the hill and come out about here, I think, to give access. That's to save people going all the way around. And that's really where I've got to so far. What I think I'm going to be able to do is to start work on laying out the canal, and I hope to get the water done on the canal, I think. Although I may complete the scenic work on this. I'm toying with how to cover this. I don't think it would be all hard standing of some description, whether that's cobbles or paving. Looking at some old photos, some of it was pretty rough ground around by the canal. It wasn't all beautifully scenic as they often are now, because they're now sort of leisure amenities more than anything else. And it's possible that I may adapt the approach of using sand, which I then paint to give me a kind of textured surface similar to ground just going across, either whether it's stone or maybe even earth based. But I do want to do some cobble work around here, and I was looking for what I might use. The Redutex, which I've used before, and is quite expensive, and if you're going to use a lot of it, it's about £8, £9 a sheet. And it runs at about 300 millimeters long by something around 150 millimeters wide. So you don't get a lot. It's extremely good stuff. So I was looking around for what else I might be able to use. And I came up with this from Volmer, who are part of the Wiesmann group. I think Wiesmann actually bought them out. It's a textured card. And I rather like it. So I will be using some of this in some places, because you would need some hard standing in some places. And also so that it's not all the same all the way around. Sorry, I must stop waving this about. This is very good. I got it from MMR Models. It's about £2.20 a sheet, I think, or £2 a sheet. Much better than £8 or £9 a sheet for a not dissimilar sized piece of Redutex. So I'm going to be using that certainly along the edges. I think I could do, because to give good grip for the horses, remembering that this would all have been built a good 150 possibly years before the time at which my railway is based. So it's really beginning to come together, this side. And I did earlier I took a photo, which I'll do a comparison again now, of what this looked like earlier last year, before I took the decision that this end of the layout wasn't working. And I'll put it up what it looked like then. And if I bring the camera around a bit more to give a similar sort of view to what it looks like now. I was watching Four Oaks Street. Is it Four Oaks Street? Yes, Chris's N-gauge layout. And he was talking about the work that he was doing around the new area on his layout and what the station layout would be and what other things would do. And he used a phrase which really struck a chord with me as I was trying to work out what was going to happen in this area, which was paralysis by analysis. And I think having gone from one part where I didn't plan ahead far enough and then found myself in a cul-de-sac, I'd gone to the extreme other end, which is I wanted to plan out how all of this will work, how it will all tie into the top, exactly what I was going to do through all the steps. And the problem was I was ending up doing nothing. And I was fixating over how I was going to get some of the foam card and get it in space. I didn't have enough. Did I have to buy some more? And it suddenly, his phrase just sort of allowed something in my brain to switch. And I suddenly thought, all you need is a roadway. It's not going to bear any weight. So it doesn't have to be the most amazing construction ever. And as you'll see, all this is just card. It's 2mm card underneath. That is 3mm foam board. And then the cork on top, just to make sure that everything comes up to the right level. And that has provided me with the corner. Now the rest I will use, I'm probably going to use, I think, some of the Woodland Scenic Shaper sheet. I may even invest in some sculptor mould because I rather like the look of that stuff. And that will certainly be useful for filling in the areas here, because I intend to have an embankment coming down here, not maybe right up to the edge of the canal, but just to fill that gap. And then probably some sort of area around here. So that's been quite a lot of chat. I hope you've enjoyed the trains going by through that, but I've got a lot of things sorted now about how I wanted to do them, and I just wanted to share them with you. Final thing before I bring the video to a close, I bought from MMR Models, who make this canal barge, 3 other vehicles. And I was really impressed with them. One of them, this is a dock crane, which is going to go into, let's get it the other way so you can see the little chappy, which is going to go over the other side because that's going to be used for the timber yard. And 2 things to put into the gasworks, one of which is this Fordson lorry. Now 1920s, 1930s vehicles are really hard to come by. And I'm really impressed with this. These are 3D printed. I'll put a link in the description to MMR Models, and a little bulldozer, which I can put onto the into the gasworks, which will be used for moving the coal around. So just another shout out for MMR Models. I've got a number of their vehicles which you'll have seen in different places, and indeed the crane that's sitting, the bucket grab that's sitting in the gasworks is also from them. A really good range of stuff, and some of it's quite interesting and quirky, including 2 cars that have been involved in an accident, and quite a lot of other things that you might want to go and have a look at. But that, I think, brings the video to a close. I hope you've enjoyed the video and the various stages that I've been going through as I've explained where we're going with the layout. And if you've liked the video, do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, well, please do subscribe, and please do let me have any comments on the things that you've seen, or any ideas you may have that you think would be helpful to me. They are all incredibly helpful, and I really enjoy getting them and responding to them. But until I see you again in about a fortnight's time, that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.